From the outside, my life looked like something out of a glossy magazine. A spacious house with white shutters and a perfectly trimmed lawn. A glistening pool in the backyard. A husband who worked hard and provided us with every comfort. And our son, Ethan, 21, bright, handsome, and on the brink of graduating college. People saw us as a happy family, a picture of stability and success. But they didn't see what happened once the doors were shut. They didn't hear the silence that had replaced the laughter in our home. Mark, my husband, spent more time at work than with me, and when he was home, he was either glued to his phone or numbly watching television, his eyes glazed, his presence hollow. We hadn't truly spoken in months. Not about anything that mattered. The warmth that had once filled our marriage had long cooled into a dull ache. I had become invisible in my own home, more a fixture than a person. I don't know when I stopped being a woman in his eyes. Only that one day I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize myself anymore. It was on a quiet Saturday afternoon that I first really saw Caleb. He had been Ethan's best friend for years. Polite, friendly, always respectful when he visited, but just another face in the background. Until that day, I was standing in the kitchen, drying a glass, when I glanced through the sliding doors and saw the two of them by the pool. Caleb had just resurfaced from a dive, water streaming down his back, his skin catching the sunlight. He laughed, a deep, carefree sound that cut through the stillness like music. There was something about him that drew my eyes, something alive and magnetic. He moved with a relaxed confidence that Mark hadn't had in years. My fingers froze around the glass. I stared for a moment too long. I forced myself to look away, turning back to the dishes, silently berating myself. But my thoughts kept slipping back to him. The sound of his laughter, the way he moved, the feeling that, for the first time in a very long while, someone in this house was fully alive. Over the following weeks, Caleb was around more often. He and Ethan lifted weights in the garage, played video games until the early hours of the morning, lounged by the pool on hot afternoons. And with each visit, I became more aware of him. His scent would linger in the air after he left, a faint trace of woodsy cologne that clung to the upholstery. I noticed the way his eyes found mine across the room, how his voice deepened when he spoke to me. These weren't fantasies. They were small, undeniable moments that made my skin flush and my heart tighten. One afternoon, while Ethan ran to the store, Caleb stepped into the kitchen. I hadn't heard him approach. "Mrs. Reynolds, mind if I grab some water?" he asked, his voice low and smooth. I turned, startled, and forced a smile. "Of course. And please, just call me Claire." His lips curved into a grin. "Thanks, Claire." As he reached for a glass in the cupboard above me, our hands brushed, just for a second, but the sensation burned through me like electricity. I pulled back, praying he hadn't noticed the way my breath caught. "Sorry about that," he said with a soft chuckle, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of awareness. I mumbled something and turned back to the sink, gripping the edge of the counter to steady myself. I felt like a teenager, flushed and flustered. What was wrong with me? I was a grown woman, a mother, a wife. That night, after the house had gone quiet, I sat by the pool, staring into the moonlit water. I told myself it was just a harmless crush, a brief spark in the darkness that would fade. But deep down, I already knew it was something more dangerous. I had crossed a line inside myself. Caleb wasn't just attractive. He noticed things. He paid attention to me in ways Mark hadn't for years. He'd ask how my day was and actually listen to the answer. He saw how my smile didn't quite reach my eyes. He caught the pause in my voice when I said I was fine. One evening, I was folding laundry near the window when I heard Ethan and Caleb playing basketball outside. They were shirtless, their backs slick with sweat in the golden light. I told myself to keep folding, to focus, but my eyes kept drifting to Caleb. He caught me watching. He didn't look away. His smile wasn't friendly. It was slow, deliberate, and knowing. I turned quickly, cheeks burning. Moments later, he was standing outside the open window. "You should come outside more, Claire," he said, voice low. "Get some sun." I gave a strained laugh. "I'm fine here." But I wasn't. I couldn't stop hearing his voice in my head. Couldn't shake the way he looked at me like he knew exactly what I was thinking. Another evening after dinner, I was cleaning the kitchen when I felt his presence again. He stepped inside, casually leaning against the counter. "Need any help?" he asked. "No," I said quickly, trying not to meet his eyes. He didn't move, just stood there, watching me with a quiet intensity. "You work too hard," he murmured. "Someone should take care of you for a change." My hand stilled over the dish. His words hung in the air, heavy, electric. No one had spoken to me like that in years. It felt like he saw through me, past the mask I wore every day. I should have told him to stop. I should have said something. But I said nothing. The night everything changed, Mark and Ethan went to a basketball game in the city. Caleb stayed behind, claiming he wasn't into sports. I didn't question it. I should have. I was curled up on the couch, pretending to read a book I couldn't focus on, when Caleb walked in, glass of water in hand. "Mind if I join you?" I nodded, heart thudding. He sat beside me, closer than ever before. The silence between us wasn't comfortable. It was pulsing with something unsaid. "You seem nervous," he said softly. "I'm fine." He took the book gently from my hands and set it aside. "Claire," he said, his voice tender but firm, "you don't have to pretend with me." Hearing him say my name like that, without the distance or formality, made my stomach flip. I whispered, "I can't." "You can," he said, unwavering. "I know you feel it too." And I did. I stopped resisting. I stopped thinking. I leaned in, and he met me halfway. The kiss was soft, deliberate. Weeks of tension and stolen glances, igniting all at once. His hands were warm and sure, and my body remembered what it felt like to be wanted. For weeks after, we lived in stolen moments. A brush of fingertips, a whispered word, a lingering look when no one was watching. But secrets don't stay buried forever. One evening, as I was wiping the kitchen counter, Mark walked in holding a hoodie. "Did Caleb leave this here?" he asked, too casually. "Yes," I answered too quickly. He must have forgotten it. He looked at me for a long second, searching my face, measuring the lie, but said nothing. Days later, the final blow came. I was in the kitchen again. Caleb had reached out to touch my hand, just a simple, familiar gesture. But the timing was catastrophic. Mark walked in. The room dropped into silence. Mark's face darkened. What the hell is going on? Before I could respond, Ethan stepped into the room, confused by the tension. "What's happening?" Mark turned to him, voice sharp and pained. "How well do you really know your friend?" Everything shattered in that instant. Ethan stared at me, betrayed and devastated, then turned and stormed out. Caleb didn't say a word. His face was pale, eyes empty. He left, and this time he didn't come back. Mark moved into the guest room. Ethan refused to look me in the eye. Caleb disappeared from our lives. I had destroyed everything. Months have passed. The house is quieter than ever. Ethan barely comes home, and when he does, he doesn't speak. Mark and I exist beside each other, like two strangers bound by shared history and regret. I saw Caleb once at a gas station. He looked well distant. We didn't speak. He nodded, and I nodded back. That was it. What we had wasn't love. It was a mistake. A cruel illusion that cost me everything. I try to carry on, but the weight of my choices presses down on me every day. Some lines, once crossed, stain everything, and some damage can't be undone.